It's very interesting you should say all of that, because from my experience as the avoidant, what you're describing, this journey of taking more responsibility, taking more charge, is one of the biggest complaints I had, which I believe was sabotaging things that you didn't initially, that you wanted me to make all the decisions for everything, whereas I didn't want to. It was like this pressure to be steering.
Two-sided, because if I did try to take charge and make decisions, you wouldn't cooperate.
No, but I mean, like, what movie are we watching? Like really simple decisions.
Even
where
with
you
that,
were just
I picked a movie you never liked. So
it's also true. Yeah.
So I think me taking a step back, it's a dynamic.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it's getting out of it is also, it needs to be double-sided effort. Both sides need to be willing to cooperate.
Yeah. You have to stop playing the
because you
roles.
Wanted all control.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah.
See?
It's very tricky.
And like this, what I did right now is...
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Attachment Diaries. My name is Gabriel. I'm a former avoidant.
And I'm Karolina, and I used to be anxiously attached.
And today's topic is going to be essentially the opposite of what we talked about last time, where we discussed my journey from avoidant to secure. So in order to keep things fair, we're going to talk about your journey from anxious to secure.
And how I stopped sabotaging our relationship.
Exactly. Thank you. All right. So I'm a bit excited about this because you've been putting me on the hot seat quite a bit with my avoidant attachment style. So now I get to ask you all the burning questions and point out all your mistakes and shortcomings.
I'm happy for you.
So I thought maybe what could help initially is to talk a little bit about what your experience was as an anxious person in relationships. Can you tell me a little about that?
My experience as an anxious person in a relationship, in our relationship in particular, because that's the only relationship I had where I was actually anxious, was that of constant worry, in a way. I was always paranoid that you're not going to text me ever again, or that that's like the last time we saw each other. It's just constant fear of being abandoned, but also a lot of ups and downs, because I have this fear, and then whenever you did text me, or whenever you did initiate, or whenever we saw each other, be like, yay, he cares. So it was this experience of like constant doubt, constant questioning, but also a lot of thrill and positive surprises. Roller coaster, I guess, but also a lot of negative surprises when you did start pulling away and became more and more unavailable, and went from dating to, oh, I'm undecided, I don't know what I want, and then breakups. So yeah.
So it sounds very much like being along for the roller coaster ride experience.
Or creating a roller coaster. In a way, I think a part of it was that I had all my fears, and I think in some ways I was making them come true.
You were making your fears come true?
I think so.
Oh, I want to hear all about this. Tell me more. What fears did you have?
Of being abandoned.
Being abandoned?
Yes.
And do you feel like, to some extent, you contributed to that becoming a reality?
I think so. I think it's a bit like this phenomenon where when you're very afraid of something, you end up making it happen. Even with drivers, right? When they see something on the road, they end up driving in that direction, even if it is a pole or a truck or something.
Mm.
I feel like the same way, my fear of being abandoned and my obsession, my insecurity, contributed to this dynamic that then allowed you to take me for granted and abandon me.
So it was a self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts.
I think so. Yes.
Okay. So what was the narrative for you then,
The narrative,
in your own mind, that led to whatever contribution you had to the abandonment?
I think it was this fear that somehow my fate, that there's something wrong with me, or that I can never have what other people seem to have, the stability.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, some weird, you
You
know?
previously mentioned this reoccurring fear that I remember you used to have with being the cliche old lady with cats, right?
Just that I can't have cats, yes.
Yeah, because of your
So I
allergies.
can't even have cats,
Yeah. But
you know?
but this was like a genuine fear of yours, right? Forever alone.
Yes, yes.
So that narrative, how did you translate that belief or that narrative in our relationship? How do you think your behaviors reflected that?
I think it made me unsure of myself. I think it made me doubt my own value and what I bring into the relationship. It contributed to me feeling replaceable, or like it's somehow my fate to end up alone, which is ridiculous because now we've been married 13 years, so I'm the opposite. But it didn't directly cause a lot of stuff. It was more of an indirect side effect.
Mm-hmm.
And it created the dynamic between us where I was always unsure and also always wanting more. And you were the one who had to then put the brakes on and be like, well, let's pace ourselves, let's not jump into things, which then reinforced all my beliefs and all my fears and only made me feel more insecure. So it was like a spiral of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was spiraling, I automatically would then become less attractive or less interesting or allow you to take me for granted
Yeah,
or, yeah.
yeah. I can definitely confirm that that comes across or came across.
Mm.
I think a simplified version of how people understand this is they talk about being high value or
Mm-hmm.
knowing your own value, and that when you do, people, or men, women, will respect you more and take you more seriously. And I think it's maybe a bit simplified, but there is a lot of truth in that too. That when you know your own worth, you're communicating it externally. And if you believe, for whatever reason, that you deserve to be abandoned or will be abandoned, right,
That
then
there's
you
something wrong
just,
with me.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're communicating that too. And I have my own pattern that feeds into that. And then, yes, it becomes a cycle of push pull, of abandoning,
And
and
also reinforcement of
the
all the proof.
messages.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it sounds like quite a rough ride.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
What changed for you over time, or how did you feel like you journeyed from being in this state predominantly to gradually easing out of it? Because I know from my perspective how much you've changed, which is
Mm.
dramatic. But this transformation, let's flesh it out a little bit. Where do you feel like it started?
It's a good question, I guess. And it's hard to pinpoint an exact moment of when it started. But I do find that in the course of our relationship, it did undermine my sense of confidence. And I was spiraling towards more and more anxious states and less confidence and more and more anxiety, basically. And I think it was me noticing that that's what's happening a bit. Me realizing, okay, I was more confident before I met you than I am now. And being a bit like, what the hell? So noticing it, I think, was the first step in snapping out of it. I think a part of it was also that in our relationship, I let you take the reins a lot, which I think often is what avoidants need. And I saw that that's what's creating this dynamic, that when I'm making or when I'm letting you lead the way, and we're just doing everything on your terms and staying in your narrative and in your frame of mind, it's only making me spiral and feel worse and worse and worse about myself. And you become more and more undecided and more distant. So in essence, noticing, okay, this is not healthy. This is not good for me. This is not making me happy. Because in the beginning, our relationship did make me happier. But then as the months went by, it did not anymore. It made me less happy. It made me more anxious. And then I realized, okay, I need to take the reins. I can't let you drive. I need to drive myself. I need to take charge of my own life and not just hope that you're going to give me what I'm wanting. Instead, to try to give myself what I'm wanting more and become a bit more independent. And I think it did happen after every breakup, to be honest. When we were together, I was more in this follower role. And whenever you did break up, I was initially always desperate and sad and wanted you back.
Yeah.
But every time I was also offended, you know?
You were.
Yeah.
I
So,
remember.
and it forced me to snap out of this chase and wanting more and more closeness. You put a stop to it. You were like the drug that I always wanted more of, and then you'd remove yourself from the equation, and I'd be like, okay, I need to fill my time with something else. I need to fill my attention with something else and decide what I want in life and make plans where you're not included, and look out for myself. And so, yeah, it's not an exact point. It's more like lots of little breaking points
that added up.
Yeah.
You know, it's very interesting you should say all of that, because from my experience as the avoidant, what you're describing, this journey of taking more responsibility, taking more charge, is one of the biggest complaints I had, which I believe was sabotaging things that you didn't initially, that you wanted me to make all the decisions for everything, whereas I didn't want to. It was like this pressure to
Well,
be
it was
steering.
two-sided, because if I did try to make more, if I did try to take charge and make decisions, you wouldn't cooperate.
No, but I mean, like, what movie are we watching? You know, like really simple decisions.
Even
where
with
you
that,
were just
I picked a movie you never liked.
So it's also true. Yeah.
So I think me taking a step back, it's a dynamic.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it's getting out of it is also, it needs to be double-sided effort. Both sides need to be willing to cooperate.
Yeah.
You
have to stop playing the
because
assigned
you
roles.
wanted all control.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah,
See?
it's very tricky.
And like this, what I did right now is part of that journey.
Yeah.
To not just let you control the narrative and the story.
Previously you may not have said anything.
Yes.
Or believed.
Because I didn't want you to get upset.
And it would have ended at whatever I just said.
Yeah, and not just be silent.
And you'd be like, yeah, I guess he's right, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So stepping up, taking charge, taking responsibility.
Stepping out and looking at the situation with my own eyes, from my perspective, not taking you into perspective, and also letting go of the fantasy of who I wanted you to be and what I wanted us to become. And
I think that's actually a very important point, the fantasy. Can you elaborate a little on that? Because I know a lot of our coaching clients can be stuck in that, where they're just looking at their avoidant partner in particular through this lens of what they can be or what the relationship could be. What are the pitfalls in that for an anxious person?
I think this isn't just anxious people. I think avoidants are very much the same. I think it's a human problem that when you fall in love with someone, you make this perfect picture of this person. And we do it a bit differently. I think anxious people have more of tendency to look past avoidance shortcomings, versus avoidants have more of a tendency to be scrutinizing and think, oh, maybe the grass is greener, maybe this perfect person exists somewhere else for me. But in essence, it's the same need. I think it's a need to be with someone who will fulfill all your needs without you having to ask for it.
That's the fantasy.
That's the fantasy. And the pitfall it creates is for anxious people that we chase the avoidant. We believe the avoidant can be that for us. And then we chase them to give us things that often they straight up say they cannot give us. But we're so sold onto the narrative, sold onto the fantasy, that we keep on pushing for that idea rather than face the reality of what this person is actually willing to give or not give. And I think this fantasy of what an avoidant could provide often comes from the early relationship stages, where both people put on a bit of a show for the other person.
Right.
Right?
They make all this incredible effort. There's love bombing.
And they're cool and understanding and
meeting your
everything's
needs.
Working.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're on the same page. So this is where, right, you're sold.
Yeah.
On what you can have. And then as an anxious person, you keep on trying to find back to that initial feeling. You're chasing after that initial feeling that's no longer there. And then feeling like, oh, the fact that the feeling is no longer there must be my fault. And what did I do wrong? And is there not enough? Like, is there something wrong with me? Am I not enough? And
trying harder and harder and harder.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the first step for me was to stop idealizing you and get upset with you and see, okay, you've got flaws.
Letting go of this fantasy
then
helped you deal with the reality of who I was, what I could and could not provide.
And helped me not take it also personally, because suddenly it wasn't my shortcoming that you're not giving me these things.
It was my shortcoming.
Exactly. It wasn't my shortcoming that you're not giving me, these things and fulfilling my fantasy. But suddenly it was like, okay, he's got problems.
Yeah.
And he's unsure about decisions or procrastinating and playing all these stupid games and being a jerk. And,
Hey, and you're supposed to be in the hot seat today.
Leaving me on red and not replying. And what's more, I can do the same. Yeah.
So it was an empowering experience of going from kind of being on the rails where you're letting me drive and you're in this fantasy of who I am, to hold on, I need to be more in control, and the fantasy is a fantasy.
Yeah.
And not to say there isn't reality in that fantasy. I think
here we are today.
Yeah, it can be built.
Yeah.
But in the initial burst, I think it often is just putting on the best possible effort you can, which most people can sustain for a month or two.
You were crazy. The elaborate dates. I don't know where you got all the date ideas. Was it off Pinterest or something?
I think I did my research, but
Yeah.
I also, I was creative.
Yeah.
I wanted to make an effort.
Yeah. And it's not something anyone can sustain. And
Yeah.
it's also not healthy to try to impress someone else the whole time. So, yeah, I think stepping out of the train of idealizing you and chasing after some idea of who you made me believe you were, but also who I made you to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was step one. But that was the beginning of me stopping to sabotage our relationship. There is more.
I know.
That was just like the initial realization. But further actions were actually what changed things for us in our dynamic. Actions that were possible suddenly because I was no longer putting you up on a pedestal the whole time or making you this unattainable goal that I can never achieve.
Right. And I find that we see a lot of people in that trap where they just continuously cycle in this stage, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like they have an idealized idea, the person, often the avoidant, fails to meet that ideal. They're disappointed, they're devastated, there's like a break or something, maybe they get back together often, and then it starts over. Instead of facing the music and saying, okay, I guess they're human, right? And they're not this perfect fantasy I have.
They are not perfectly caring. They are selfish sometimes. They don't have anything figured out in life.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They have mental health problems.
Right. So you mentioned this was the beginning, so a foundation of sorts.
Yes.
Where did it go from there?
So we were in this cycle of breakup, makeup, breakup, makeup. And I would say it already started with the first breakup, which technically was I broke up with you because you didn't know what you wanted.
Well, that's how I framed it.
And I realized that you gaslit me into doing it. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I can make my own decisions for myself. Thank you very much. And so yeah. So that was, I think, the first time when my blinders were off. And I was like, what the hell, right? And then you sent me the group invite for the
Halloween
parties. Yeah. And then again, I was openly offended. I was like, how dare you send me a group invite? I'm not coming. I deserve a more special treatment than a mass email. To which made you give me the more special treatment. And you were like, of course.
You came.
So that's where I learned that being confrontational and being difficult, I guess, actually gets me more of what I want. And I kept on making this experience that if I'm just being stubborn and being like, no, that you're gonna make it work, you know? And that helped me undermine this belief of mine that there's something wrong with me and I deserve to be abandoned, because suddenly I'm not doing anything. I'm literally throwing a tantrum. And yet you make an effort to make peace. So that was like a new trick I learned that I can pull, that pulls you back in. And I also realized, okay, I can get him to come back. I can pull him back in. So I think part of what made me sabotage our relationship was this like sitting back attitude of
Letting it happen.
letting everything happen and letting you control everything. And with these little things, this is how I learned to take the reins and take control. So the sabotage on my part was doing nothing or just being helpless. And instead, I learned to influence you. I was like, okay, how do I get him to behave the way I would want him to behave?
Mm.
And that's a very different way of thinking about a relationship or friendship, even. But I think this pursuing what you want is how you make anything happen in life.
Yeah, it's funny you should say all of that because I think as an avoidant, or me at the time, it was incredibly frustrating that you were not taking charge. I understand it's a dynamic and all that, but you stepping up and being more confrontational, I'm not saying going to the other extreme, right? But where it feels necessary and fair,
Calling you out.
yeah, was actually very reassuring, was actually respect inducing, and
Trust
something,
inducing.
and trust inducing, and something I craved. Because when you are in this state of, I don't know, and just waiting for me to take the lead and all that stuff, I feel like all the responsibilities on me and I have to figure it all out. And I don't actually know where you're at. And that's unsettling and not trust inducing. And I find avoidance can eventually have enough of that. And that can contribute to a lot of distance, separation, breakups, because they want someone that, I don't know, fights back a little, somebody that,
Can handle them.
yeah, can handle them. Like you need this back and forth. It can't just be one person dominating everything.
And the other one just love bombing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's also about being willing to meet the avoidant where they're at rather than projecting your ideas onto them. Because it was when I was more willing to see you for who you were that made you open up more and talk to me about your
Yeah.
issues, because suddenly it wasn't like I was projecting some idealized version or some impossible standard onto you and hoping that you'll fulfill it.
Right.
But I was like, okay, well, you didn't reach out to me for a week. What's up?
Yeah. And when you have this idealized version of me, there's no room for me to be human, to have these flaws, to have the weakness, which is another way I think anxious people sabotage things. It's just too much pressure to have it all together, to be this perfect partner.
Yeah.
And you overcoming that and being willing to say, okay, this is where he's at, this is what he can do and cannot do, helped me feel safe enough, right? Because I wasn't afraid that there was going to be judgment because I'm falling from that pedestal, that it was okay to be human and to be flawed, that I could open up more and connect more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that goes both ways, because it's not just that you had to be perfect, but somehow I had to be perfect too. And I think one of the biggest ways in which I stopped sabotaging our relationship was that I stopped expecting myself to be perfect, and I allowed you to blame me for things. And that was actually quite a mind-blowing experience that I made time and time again, because you would start blaming me for something. Like, oh, you get upset so quickly, you're so controlling, you're putting all this pressure on me. And normally I'd get defensive and I'd be like, how could you say that? Or I'm just asking for this or that. But I allowed myself to be imperfect. So I'd be like, okay, let's just go with this narrative and see where it takes us. And I'd be like, okay, yeah, I am putting all this pressure on you. And we'd start having a conversation about something I was doing that made you upset. And I noticed that within 10 minutes of this conversation, we'd go from blaming me to blaming your mom. And I was like, huh. And that happened time and time again,
Yeah.
which in turn helped me get even less defensive whenever you blame me for things. Because I'd tell myself, oh, it's the same thing again.
Mm.
He's overreacting, or maybe there is something I'm doing, but his, reaction or amount of emotion attached to this thing that I'm doing seems a bit
Out of proportion.
yeah, out of proportion to the, like, I texted you 3 times in a row, or and not always. Sometimes I was overriding your boundaries, sometimes I was being needy, but I learned to take things not so personally, and I think that was a huge game changer for us, because it allowed us to actually build trust, like real trust, not this blind trust that was there before, and all the hopes and ideas, but
Yeah.
actual connection.
Yeah.
And I think another big part of what allowed me to stop sabotaging our relationship was letting go of the outcome. And that's a big one. Actually, I want to talk more about this, because I think this is something so many of my coaching clients, your coaching clients, fall into. You're so attached to a particular outcome, you're preventing your partner from giving you what you want. So even if we had plans, I might be so particular about our plans, where we go and how it feels like, that it creates that pressure, right? That would then make you back out of the plan.
That can be true of like wanting kids or marriage, right?
It can be true of dinner.
Yeah. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
in the context of more serious
Yes.
decisions
Yeah.
of a relationship,
Absolutely. Yeah.
when there's this expectation.
Yeah. And I think it is an attempt from the anxious person to control the avoidant. Absolutely. Because we're so afraid that, like, I was so afraid that you're not going to want to give me what I want, that I would like clutch onto.
Thank you.
Yeah.
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 Anxious people are controlling too.
Yes.
In their own ways and
Yes.
their own sneaky ways
Yes.
sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for the longest time I didn't see it. I felt something. I felt frustrated or annoyed, like something, like a bit of this like get off me. I need my space. And I think a lot of it came from that too, that you were just very particular about certain things and made sure that you got what you wanted at the end of the day.
Or I was so afraid that you're not going to want to give me what I wanted.
Yeah. And in constantly trying to control it and make sure it happens and get what you want, I became increasingly frustrated and pushed back and was like, to make a point almost, no, I'm not going to give you what you want under these conditions where you are forcing me to give you what you want. You have to allow me to give you what you want freely.
It was a hard one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a lesson I had to learn time and time again. And initially, I only learned the opposite, because I'd push for something and then you wouldn't give it to me, which made me believe more and more that you don't care, or that we don't want the same things. I mean, you even say it, right?
Yeah.
But the more I stepped back and the more I relaxed, the more I'd get positively surprised. And you did come around and you did give me what I wanted. We got back together every time.
Yeah.
And that came without me pushing for it. It just happened.
In a way, it's about creating room to allow the avoidant partner to step up, to trust them that if you're not controlling everything about them or managing and micromanaging and ensuring they're not triggered and they're not upset and everything, that they will come through. And I think this is one of the other patterns that are so typical, where you have the avoidant partner constantly distancing themselves or wanting space because the anxious person, knowingly or not, is controlling covertly. And not to say pushing isn't good sometimes, right? I think it depends where you're coming from. If it's from a place of, I can't trust him to do what he needs to do, so I'm going to say this or do that little thing there to ensure he does what I want, you're sabotaging. If it's coming from a place of, I know he needs this push now to get out of this slump of depression or whatever,
Or I
that
can't
can be
take
good.
this silence anymore.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Depends where you're coming from. So seeing your own controlling behavior and that it wasn't getting you what you wanted.
I don't think I saw my own control. I think from my perspective was like, oh, if I relax about it, I'm gonna get what I want.
Okay, I'm just gonna take the satisfaction in calling it controlling behavior because that's what it was. You're in the hot seat today.
That is what it was, yes.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm still sorry.
Still sorry. I think because it's with every pattern we uncover, right, that either of us have, it's this ongoing process too. People tend to think like, I had my aha moment and now I'm over it and I'm different and I will never do it again. And what I tell my clients is, when your partner has a breakthrough, expect them to relapse in a week, sometimes sooner. That's totally normal. It's expected. And you need to help them get back on their feet over and over again. And it's with time and effort and reinforcement and support that we finally come through and truly transform and come out the other end and let go of that pattern. But it's a process of building enough confidence and trust in this new way of coping, in this new way of behaving, to let go of the old coping mechanism.
Yeah, yeah. And you don't need to fully let go. It's about fixing it enough, because I'm still anxious. I mean, you're still avoidant. You're also anxious. I'm still avoidant. We have flaws, but it was enough for me to stop being completely anxious and clutch onto you and be helpless, to get you to stop breaking up and just stay.
Yeah.
And when that happened, when last time we broke up and we got together, and the way you were relating to me then, to me, came as a surprise. Like, I was expecting the old pattern to continue, the pulling away and the not answering, but I wasn't so anxious anymore. So even if you did, which I think sometimes you did, still pull away, we were living half an hour away from each other by metro, but there were times when you just didn't text me, and there were times when I'd text you instead and be like, okay, enough of this silence, let me just text him and find out what he's up to. But there were also times when I'd be like, oh, I'm sick of just chasing after him, let me wait and see if I hear from you. And sometimes I wouldn't hear from you for like 5 days, 7 days, even though we were together. But it didn't get to me in the way it used to. It wouldn't make me feel unsure of myself. It just was like mildly annoying, or a bit like a test. How long until I hear from him? So it was surprising. You know, when we started working, it was surprising to me. I didn't expect it. It wasn't something I created. It was something that just happened. But I think that's part of this journey of anxious to secure. that when you are secure, you're not so obsessed over the outcome. You're trusting this person that you're with, right? To come through and to not abandon you out of the blue for no reason. I mean, it's ridiculous, the fear that anxious people have, that you're going to be abandoned for no reason. Why would you be abandoned? I mean,
Yeah, or even that if you are, that it's somehow all your fault.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Yeah.
So your avoidant partner also has issues.
Yeah. So yeah, when things were working, I was just like, how is it possible that now that I seem to care less and make less effort, you make more effort and things just work and we get along and we're good.
Yeah.
And I was still afraid of being abandoned, I think, for another year or something. But I could sense that we're growing closer and closer together. And it just never happened again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Problem solved.
It is kind of ironic how, in a way, it is about letting go of patterns and behaviors and beliefs
And control.
that allow for this normality. I would say just like maybe how you might be as a child when you don't have all this conditioning yet and all these beliefs and trauma. You just connect. You just
Make
have
friends.
Yeah, you just trust more easily. You connect more easily, and it just feels like,
It just works.
That just works.
Yeah.
Rather than I have to layer on all these mechanisms, frameworks, ways of behaving, coping, controlling, whatever
Try
it
to
might
mold
be.
my partner
Yeah,
and push them
exactly.
onto the right train
Exactly.
track. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And I find that what you're describing here too about letting go of all these kinds of controlling behaviors and like helping, trying to support, is a dynamic we often see where it almost feels like a parental role, where the anxious person plays the mother or father to their avoidant partner that is in the child role, where they're like, I have to be this parent in a sense in order for this to work, because if I don't, it's all going to fall apart. And that's a trap. Like, it's not sustainable. I think there is room for some of it, but it can't just operate on that basis.
Yeah, I think some of it can be helpful, and that still is the case for us, right? But it has to be very little,
Yeah.
and only when the other person is enjoying it.
Yeah, when they're receptive.
Yeah, when they want to be treated like a kid.
Mm.
And it can be nice sometimes, right?
Yeah,
so like
absolutely.
Get pets
Yeah.
and like be like, okay, I'm having cookies for dinner. But when they're not receptive and you continue doing it,
You're digging a hole.
You're sabotaging.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get what you want.
Yeah.
You're gonna get burnt. I think the journey from anxious to secure, in a way, is a journey of acceptance that you can't control your partner, that you can't ensure that they're going to give you what you need, and learning to trust that they will want to give you the things you need on their own accord.
Right.
Or realizing that they will not, and moving on.
Yeah.
I think that also happens. Sometimes it just turns out you can't get what you want from this person. They're literally not willing, and some people are not. But you were, and I find a lot of avoidants are. It is a matter of leaving them room, and also putting them on the spot and confronting them and calling out their BS and giving them deadlines to make up their mind. They need that. And you needed that. You needed me to step in whenever you were distant and unavailable. Sometimes you needed me to straight up, show up at your place and with something to like pretend that, with pizza, or drag you out You needed that
Yeah.
to snap out of being depressed or
Yeah,
something.
absolutely.
Much like I needed that
I
sometimes.
welcomed it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's a bit like a state of learned helplessness sometimes where
Mm.
you can't reach out for help
Yeah,
and somebody needs to step in. But it's all about balance, right? You
yeah.
can't overdo anything, whether
No.
it's like stepping back too much and just letting go entirely and saying, I don't care, I'm doing no contact,
Mm.
or just micromanaging everything.
Or reaching out and love bombing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you need the middle ground.
And you need to learn to get along. You're not working with some, like, it's another human being that you're trying to build a connection with, right? So it's about cooperating instead of controlling or covertly manipulating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that we stress this so much, but I find, as obvious as it might sound,
Yeah, it's
people
not.
people don't
It wasn't to
realize
me.
that they're doing that,
Yeah.
right? That they're not relating to their partner as an equal, as a person. They're like, no, they're somehow deficient or broken and need this help or need to be controlled or whatever it is. And as long as you're coming from that place, they are going to feel resentment or frustrated at you for relating to them that way. And it generally goes both ways, right? And it doesn't end well if it continues for too long.
Yeah, and if someone is making you feel broken and deficient, to also be able to say, no,
Yeah.
you're broken.
You're no less broken than I am.
Yeah, we're both broken. Yeah, so I think that was the journey for me. That's what changed. That's what allowed me to overcome the fear of being abandoned and build this relationship where I don't feel
The need to control everything.
unless it's, about certain,
Unless it's about baking.
unless it's about baking.
No, but you've
But
come a
even
long
with
way with
baking,
baking.
yeah,
No, it's
yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah. And you also don't have the need to control everything.
How the dishwasher's loaded.
But we work,
Yeah.
and we both know we're hopelessly attached. And there is room for either of us to be clingy and insecure. And there's also room for either of us to not have room for the other person.
Yeah.
To be like, I can't right now.
Also important.
Yeah. Yeah. It turned out we did want the same thing and
Yeah.
need the same things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this journey of yours from anxious to secure, how, because you mentioned it earlier, right, that there is improvement along the way. It isn't about completing the journey to finally get what you want. You get what you want as you go along. How long would you say in our 13, 14 years of being together did you start seeing results?
I think it was directly linked to me taking more charge.
So within the first years?
Within the first year, after the first breakup, I already had that experience, I think. But it wasn't until, I would say, 1.5 years in, after the last time we got back together, I think then it really started outweighing the bad stuff. I was getting more of what I was wanting over what wasn't working for me, right? Or over what I was missing. So in the first 6 months was good too, I'd argue. Although we already had a bit of this pull away and I was afraid of being abandoned. I was a bit caught up in what it was, what it all means. And it never was black and white, it never was like me not getting anything of what I wanted.
Right.
And it was never like I'm getting everything I ever dreamt of, unfortunately. But yeah, I think it was 1.5 years in.
Okay.
that it became where it flipped, where it went from getting worse and worse and worse to better and better and better.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. You can put that on my performance report. Husband of the year, huh?
Definitely gonna give you a husband of the year.
Do I get a gold sticker?
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, there is room for some people want to be sometimes treated like children.
It's nice.
And it's not just me.
Sometimes it's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing your anxious to secure journey.
Did you get enough confrontation? I don't feel like you were confrontational enough.
No, I felt like I was still on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Even though you're supposed I don't know, maybe I have to practice it.
I think you have to
Maybe
learn from me to... You're too understanding.
I have to lean in more.
You take too much responsibility. You're too anxious.
I'll work on it.
I used to be more critical. What happened?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just too kind now. All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching today's episode. If you found this helpful, do please like the video, subscribe if you want to hear more from us. And if you found this helpful and can think of somebody that would benefit, share it with them. And check out our links in the description if you want more resources. We have plenty of free stuff on our website too.
Thank you for watching.
All right. Bye for now.